Today is February 5th, 2025. Welcome to the Checking From Behind podcast. I'm your host, Zach, joined by my co-host, Preston, bottom of the screen. And we have a guest today. We have Marc Sautter. He ends up covering the Dallas Stars for the hockey writers. Marc, thank you for joining the podcast today.
Man, thank you for having me. And I just got to say, Zach, kudos to you. Nobody ever gets my name right on the first pronunciation, my last name, whether I'm a guest on a podcast, whether it's just real life out there in the world. Nobody ever gets my last name right. I'm super impressed. I can tell this is going to be great already. Great vibes to start all around.
Not going to lie, last night when me and Preston were in the meeting prepping for today's episode, I made sure to pronounce like 5 times, 6 times. And I meant to ask you before we recorded how to pronounce it, but I forgot. But I'm glad I pronounced it right.
I'm just curious to see how do people normally say it, because I feel like it's pretty obvious it's Sautter.
Oh, dude, it's Sautter, it's Sautter, it's Sutter, and some people, this is rare, but it's happened because my first name's spelled with a C, right? So some people just assume that it's French. So I get the odd Gautier every once in a while. That's one's rare, but it has happened for sure.
Gautier is great, and then I think my favorite one is Sautter. Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
I find that funny.
Yeah, they have to pronunciate all of the sa like they gotta go all the way through.
Have to make sure to pronounce every single syllable all the way through. Yeah. I love it. All right, so real quick, just let us know how you end up getting with the hockey writers, and kind of covering the Dallas Stars, that type of stuff.
Yeah, so I started basically writing for the hockey writers about the Dallas Stars back in December. It was time for me to move on from the last place that I was writing. I've been covering like the NHL as a whole. I have a daily gambling podcast called Pucks Across Borders, a little shameless plug. And I've been writing about the NHL for about a year, and been doing the podcast for a couple years. And it was just time for me to move on from where I was writing before. And I just noticed the hockey writers, my buddy Christopher Babos, he covers the Washington Capitals for the hockey writers, but he also covers the Philadelphia Eagles and the Flyers for Philadelphia, sports media places. And he joined the hockey writers a little bit before me and just said, hey man, this place is great. They don't have certain coverage of, certain teams, reach out and blah, blah, blah. So I sent them an email. I cover the league, so it didn't take me too long to kind of get the ball rolling with the Dallas Stars. But I'm really glad that I did end up covering the Stars, man. This is a really fun team, a lot of fun personalities. It's been a very dramatic season, as we're going to get into. Lots of ups and downs. Right now, it's certainly up. So it's been a lot of fun. And I'm glad that this is the team that I finally landed on.
It's nice that you end up, because you're Toronto-based, going to cover the Dallas Stars. I know it's a different time zone, and you can't go to games. It's hard to follow a different team when you're halfway across North America. But Dallas doesn't really get a lot of coverage as it is, and they're as close to a cup contender as you can get to. I mean, I would consider them a cup contender.
Yeah, they definitely are. Yeah.
And like hockey in the South in general needs more coverage, and that's how you grow the game. And it is nice that somebody that's up north in Canada is like, you know what, you guys need somebody to write for the Dallas Stars. I'll write for the Dallas Stars, get their name out there, because there's not a lot of people that do it in general. So, I mean, I find that fascinating as well. And this team right now, I want to get your reaction. I know they just made a trade last week, and I want to get your firsthand reaction when they ended up going and getting Mikael Granlund and Ceci for the first-round pick. And that first-round pick's most likely going to be basically like an early second-round pick. It's going to be between 28 and 32, depending on where they finish in the playoffs. And to me, that screams, we know Nils Lundqvist is going to be out indefinitely. Is this season ending? Is he confirmed out for the season?
So Nils Lundqvist is season ending, and Miro Heiskanen, depending on the pronunciation you choose to go with, he is out now month to month, which is like the hockey equivalent of like we're not telling you anything.
Yeah.
That's just what it is in the NHL. But yes, Lundqvist is out for the rest of the year, which is unfortunate.
Yeah, and and Cody Ceci coming in, kind of providing that depth when you lose Heiskanen and Lundqvist basically in the same week. And then going out and getting Granlund screams to me that Sagan is probably not going to be back until sometime come the playoff times, if not in the later rounds, depending on how far the Stars go. I know originally I think it was 4 to 6 months when he got the injury, and it feels like it's going to be the latter half, closer to 6 months. So going out, and the Stars always do this come late January, early February, they identify a need and they go and get it. Last year, they went out and got Chris Tanev, which made the defense a juggernaut. It transformed the blue line come the playoffs in the second half of the season. So I think this trade in the long haul, even if they end up getting Heiskanen back just in time for the playoffs, getting Sagan back in the second round if the Stars make it that far, I think that having Granlund down the middle, it strengthens the core so much. And if this team is fully healthy, it's hard to see a team that is as deep as the Dallas Stars in the Western Conference, or maybe even the league as a whole, too.
Yeah, 100%. I think, well, first of all, the biggest trade in Dallas on Saturday, right? There was no other trades going on Saturday. That was
oh my
God. Talk about stealing the Dallas headlines,
Yes.
But all, jokes aside, I do think this is a really good deal for a few different reasons. Number one, Granlund is a player that can just go up and down the lineup. If you need him down on the third line, probably not the fourth line, but the third line, if you see something in the game, you need to throw him on the top line for whatever reason. Maybe someone gets hurt. He's a really fast skater. He can keep up with the big boys if he needs to go up. But you're absolutely right. Whether it's second line, third line, he did start on the third line over the weekend. So that's absolutely huge. The other one is not so much this year. It's been a little bit down for him. I think he had 15 or 16 power play points going into the trade, but historically he has been a really good distributor on the power play, which for the Dallas Stars has been dreadful until January. Their power play is 31.6% going into the game last night. And for the first half of the season, it was like 24th, 25th, 20. I think actually right now it's 24th, but going in to 2025, it was like 27th, 28th, 29th. It was awful, their power play. So to add a better power play player who can be on the second power play unit, maybe even the first from time to time, is huge. And I also think it just takes the weight off of the rookies. Like you have Maverick Bork, who had a pretty pedestrian start to his rookie campaign this year, has really started turning around it around. Logan Stankoven, who played a little bit last year but is still technically a rookie, he has had a phenomenal season just based on making the right plays, whether it's forechecking, back checking. He has played really, really well this season, but the goals have just not been going in for the guy, and they finally have been over the course of the last 6 weeks or so. So taking the pressure off the rookies a little bit, I think, is huge. And it just kind of, I mean, you guys know how it goes when you make a trade like this. It just properly puts everyone in their places, right? There's no one out of place. I think that was a really good move getting him. Cody Ceci, they have a lot of really good defenseman prospects who are just not quite ready for the NHL. And Lundqvist has been out with an injury for a while now. And they keep just, bringing guys up, sending guys down, bringing guys up, sending guys down. And this just finally gets you a, steady, professional who can just be on your third pair. The other night, not last night against the Ducks, but the game before that, he played 22 minutes, which I think is just the Heiskanen injury and trying to figure out what they're going to do, missing two key guys from their blue line. I don't think he's going to play 22 minutes every night, but he's played 840 regular season games. He's played 88 playoff games. He went to the Cup final last year. He's not going to, get you a bunch of points. We all know Cody Ceci by now. He's not going to score a bunch. He's not some crazy stealth, puck distributor, but he's just going to give you good, steady, reliable third line. The last point, and I realize I'm, being a little long-winded
No,
here,
you're
but
good.
the last point that I really like is you gave up no roster players. You have first round draft picks after this. So they gave up a 2025. They have a 2026, 27, and beyond. And the draft pick is a fourth round draft pick. If they make it to the Stanley Cup Finals, it's a third round draft pick. If they don't, it's a fourth. And they have so many second, third rounders for years to come. So you gave up a first, a fourth, hopefully a third. That's the hope, is it turns into a third, but you still have all your roster players. So if something crazy came along and they did want to trade Maverick Bork or Logan Stankoven, I don't necessarily think they should, but you still have those key young players on your roster if some home run swing does become available, or if you choose just to keep the boys together and go on a long playoff run. So I think that was a lot of the genius of this trade.
Yeah, I really think it did a really good job to address their depth. I thought this was a good trade for both teams, because San Jose is a bottom feeder right now. They just need
Absolutely.
as many picks as they can to kind of get out of the bottom of the standings. And just looking at the depth for the Dallas Stars, especially at center, especially when Tyler Seguin gets back, that's disgusting.
Oh, yeah.
I think that's the biggest thing for this Dallas team right now, is just getting to the playoffs healthy, because this team is built for playoff hockey. But like, they're so good defensively, and you have one of the best goalies in the league in Jake Ottinger back there. Cody Ceci adds some defensive depth. I don't see him. Hopefully, they don't have to rely on him too much. I think he's perfect there on that third pairing as a seventh defenseman if need so, especially in the playoffs. But yeah, this team, they're good. They're going to be a little underrated going into the playoffs, because nobody really talks about the Dallas Stars. I don't know why, because they've been consistently one of the best teams in the league for the last 4 or 5 years.
Yeah, and there's some players that are stepping up right now. Jason Robertson has been phenomenal over the past month and a half. Wyatt Johnston, again,
Love that kid. Yeah.
Honestly, I'm a Wyatt Johnston fan. I bought his jersey right there. Never wore that thing once. I bought it because I love watching him so much. He's over a point per game in his last 35, 36 or so games. And that's the difference, because when the Dallas Stars are struggling, I know I might be beating a dead horse with this, but when certain players on certain teams are struggling, the team tends to falter.
And Matt Duchene's been awesome too.
Matt Duchene's been great for them ever since they acquired him a couple years ago. He's on a 1-year contract this year, if I'm not mistaken.
No, I think
correct?
he signed a multi-year extension. No, it is another 1-year deal. Never mind.
So again,
it is 1 year. Yeah.
Yeah, so Matt Duchene has been great. Jake Ottinger has been great. The entire team right now is clicking on all cylinders, which is shown being 14-5-1 in their last 19 games, including a 9-game winning streak to kickstart this 20-game stretch they've been on. It's impressive to watch.
Well, and a huge part of how they've been playing, and I think what's the most impressive for the hockey writers, I wrote a Dear Santa, Christmas wish list for the Dallas Stars on Christmas Day. And it was, their road play was 8-8. At the time, they were the best home team in the National Hockey League, and they are still right up there, but they were 8-8 on the road, which is not going to get it done long-term, basically going 500 on the road. The other thing was their power play was awful. And then, lastly, their goal scoring was just so inconsistent. From December 1st to December 25th, they had 2 games where they scored more than 3 goals. 2. Oh. And that's just not going to cut it. Listen, Jake Ottinger, one of the best goaltenders in the National Hockey League. You can put him, I would put him top 5 for sure, but he's in that top 5,
he's in the conversation. Yeah,
absolutely. So all those things completely fixed themselves. Their road record, that streak that you were talking about, started with a road trip, and they went from being 8-8 on the road to now 14-11, thanks to the loss last night. But they completely turned their road game around. Their power play, like I talked about earlier, 31.6% for January, and their goal scoring has just skyrocketed over the last month. To go back to your point, what do all those things have in common? Jason Robertson and Wyatt Johnston. Those two guys. And I think Wyatt Johnston, same as Stankoven, has had a really good season, just hadn't been able to produce, just hadn't been able to contribute. Jason Robertson had a procedure on his foot in the summer and missed training camp, and it took him a long time to finally get going. But I mean, you mentioned it, man. Like January alone, Wyatt Johnston, 5 goals, 13 assists, 18 points in January just by itself. The most impressive thing for Jason Robertson is, and I wrote actually about this the other day. So through October, November, December, he had 9 goals. Just to get my math right here. 9 goals and 28 points. 9 goals, 28 points through the first 3 months of the season. In January, he had 10 goals and 21 points. And so you're 100% right. When this guy gets moving, specifically Jason Robertson, because Wyatt Johnston is always in the mix. He's always working hard, two-way hockey. Jason Robertson has kind of got the reputation. Sometimes he just disappears. And if this guy can just continue to cook like he is right now, this is you absolutely nailed it with Matt Duchene. Like Mason Marchment has been tremendous this year too.
Mason Marchment, yeah.
Oh,
I think
dude,
he's one of the most
so
underrated players in the league. He's been a gem on my fantasy hockey team this year.
Oh yeah. And as a fan, he just is another guy on the list that we just gave away for nothing for no reason. But that's another conversation. Say hi to Carter Verhaeghe on that list too. It's a long list. But so for me, I think those guys are awesome. Tyler Seguin, who knew how much they relied on this guy? When he got hurt, their offense dried up like it was nothing. Same with Joe Pavelski too.
Yeah.
He retired, and I don't think they realized how much they were actually going to miss him. So don't get me wrong, all those veteran guys, they need them and they need them to contribute. But it's Robertson and it's Johnston. If those two guys can keep chugging, then the Dallas Stars are going to be fine.
And I'm going off of this. I know this is pretty much the same roster that they had last season. Last playoffs specifically, Jason Robertson was hot and cold. He was cold for a lot of it. And then the Dallas Stars eventually lost gas in the Western Conference Finals against the Oilers and lost in 6 games. I am of the essence that if Jason Robertson, like you brought up, if Jason Robertson is going, and you have Wyatt Johnston, and you have Marchment, and even Evgeny Dadonov and Duchene just chipping in and doing their part in due diligence, this team is going to go all the way.
This lineup's ridiculous. I'm just looking at their line combinations on the daily face-off. Their lines they're missing 2 of their best players right now in Seguin and Heiskanen. And yeah, this lineup's ridiculous.
Oh yeah. And I mean, you made a great point with Dadonov is he's had a really good year, 15 goals this year. There was a point in this season where they needed him to contribute. And now that's not really the case anymore, which is right where you want a guy like Dadonov to be. You want him to be a guy that adds to your depth, not someone that you're actually relying on for offense, right? So, and it's the same thing with Stankoven, same thing with Bork. You need those guys to add to your depth, not be your main source. So what Jason Robertson's been doing, I think it's impressing me more than Wyatt Johnston, not because what Wyatt Johnston's doing isn't amazing. I just think Wyatt Johnston's been playing really good hockey. He just hasn't been catching the breaks, where Jason Robertson really, really struggled through the first, 2.5 months of the season.
Yeah, and when you look at the Dallas Stars, when they're built from the first line to the fourth line, it's like, okay, they have the superstars, they have Hintz, they have the guys that we've already covered and mentioned. You need those guys to produce. But then the depth is so extraordinary from top to bottom, not only on the forward not only in the forward group but also on the blue line too, and then pair that with a top 2 to 3 American goaltender in the league right now, and arguably a top 5 goaltender in the league right now. This team is built to win the Stanley Cup. And last playoffs, I was on the bandwagon. I thought the Stars were going to get it done. They just ran out of juice. And this year, if they can get everybody back healthy by the first round of the playoffs at some point, I think that it's destiny for the Stars at this point. Now, they are going to have to go through a team like Vegas or Winnipeg, or I think Dallas would beat Colorado in the series, but Colorado's not a tough out because they have McKinnon and they have Makar. Right, and then their goaltending's been great. So those are the 3 teams that I'm really looking at. It's like they can give Dallas a run for their money, but I do think Dallas will prevail against almost any team in the Western Conference. And if they don't, it's going to be the same thing like what happened last year. You have to play Vegas or Colorado in the first round. Second round, you have to play Winnipeg or Colorado or Vegas in the central bracket. And then in the Western Conference Finals, now you have to go play Edmonton again. Or maybe then you play Vegas, depending on where they finish in the standings.
I don't think they got to worry about playing Vegas in the first round this year. I think they'll be okay there.
So, again, I think that's the only way the Dallas Stars don't make it to the finals, if they have to just go through a juggernaut of a playoff bracket again.
They're going to have to play Winnipeg if they want to get out of the Central, because unless they're not going to play each other in the first round, because Winnipeg's running away with the division right now.
Oh, yeah, big time.
So Dallas is probably going to get Minnesota or Colorado in the first round. If I'm Dallas, I'd probably rather play Minnesota than Colorado, just because I don't want to deal with Nathan McKinnon and Cale Makar. Just the 2 of them alone just be enough to give me a headache. But I agree with you. I think they'd beat Colorado as they are right now. I don't know if Colorado's done yet. I think they still might have a move or 2 to make now that they have some money freed up from the Rantanen trade. I think their biggest threat right now in the Western Conference is probably Winnipeg or Vegas.
I'm with you. I agree.
Sorry, Zach, just to kind of add to that point.
Go ahead.
I think Winnipeg is really interesting because as of right now, like you guys both said, if the playoffs started tomorrow, they'd be playing Minnesota. And hopefully, I hope, just for content's sake and just for product sake, I hope that Minnesota is healthy when they get to the playoffs.
Oh, yeah.
Because
I want Kaprizov in the playoffs.
Oh my goodness, man. Maybe Dallas fans don't want him in the lineup, but just as a hockey lover, hockey watcher, I want to see Kaprizov in there and to see, what he can do. Same with Jared Spurgeon. That guy can't, catch a break either when it comes to health. But I do think Dallas would beat Minnesota. The thing that Dallas has over Winnipeg, and I do really like Winnipeg. I'm also starting to contribute a little bit to Winnipeg Jets content for the hockey writers as well. I really do like Winnipeg a lot. They've never done it before. They can't get out of the first round either, right? And I say either, sorry, because I had my beloved stupid Maple Leaf team in my head. So they can't get out of the first round. So Dallas does nothing but go to the conference final every year, right?
Yeah.
So to me, that's the one big edge that they do have is the Winnipeg Jets. Until they win a round, they will not be taken as seriously as the other juggernauts in the NHL. That's just a fact. And again, it's the same with the Toronto Maple Leafs, right? That team, you can win the division, but until you win a round or 2, no one's going to take you seriously. I do think, and the reason why I like Dallas to beat Colorado last year and why I like them to beat Colorado again this year, and quite frankly, it was why I thought that they were going to beat the Oilers in the conference final, is the depth. Mm-hmm. Colorado Avalanche, you made the point. They have to not be done making moves.
Yeah.
They cannot go into the playoffs with this roster. They just can't. They're so top heavy, especially now that Rantanen's gone. They're even more top heavy because Rantanen could drop down to the second line if they needed to get it kind of moving a little bit, or he could go all up and down. And Nikish, he's a good player, but he's not that guy. So I as of right now, I love their chances against Colorado just because I know they have McKinnon and Makar and you can't, underestimate them. But just based on depth alone, I think the Dallas Stars could absolutely beat them. Vegas, and again, another shameless plug, I just wrote a piece about this for the Hockey Writers. I think Vegas and Dallas would be the best possible conference final matchup. I just think, like, we literally just watched Vegas and Dallas 2 games in a row. Well, not in a row, but like basically back to back. Both 4-3 games. Both went down to the last minute. Like, I think those 2 rosters are paired up so well that would be a phenomenal.
Last year when they played each other
great.
in the first round, that was arguably, I think, the best series in the first round last year. It was the most entertaining, I think. I know
maybe
Boston, Toronto.
Maybe the whole playoffs, beside the Cup final. I agree with you.
Yeah, because like I know Boston, Toronto went 7 in the first round, but like I remember that series was dreadful to watch. Oh my gosh.
The Dallas Vegas series, that was my favorite series of the entire playoffs, and
Agree
that
with
was I do live commentaries and stuff on the channel, and that was easily my most watched live commentary any game. It was game 1 to game 7. That series was so entertaining, and like even if there were 2-1 or 3-2 games, it would be back and forth. There's chance after chance, save after save, and it was clean hockey too. There weren't a ton of missed passes. There weren't a ton of penalties and miscues. It was, we're gonna force your team to make a mistake, and then we're gonna pounce on the opportunity. And Dallas eventually got the best of Vegas, and Game 7 was arguably one of my favorite games to watch out of the entire playoffs.
Yeah, I felt a little bad for Dallas last year going to the playoffs because they had this phenomenal season, their first seed in the Western Conference, and their reward is they get to play a healthy Vegas team in the playoffs. Like, it's like,
I know.
If you're the 1 seed, you should play the worst playoff team, and you're playing like probably like the 3rd best team in the playoffs.
But you know what though, Preston? So first of all, I agree with you 1,000%.
Yeah.
Point 2 though, they might be able to do to whoever they play in the playoffs what Vegas did to them last year, because if they don't bring back Tyler Seguin before the playoffs start, you can use his money for long term.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Same with Heiskanen. So now you have 2 really well paid players
I didn't think about that. Ooh.
Who could be going on long term, who are on, well, Seguin is on long term, and Heiskanen could be as well.
Let me check. I think Heiskanen is on LTIR. No, Nils Lundqvist is. Sorry.
Yeah. So if they decide by March 7th, hey, these 2 guys aren't going to be back in a month and a half, let's go out and get some studs. There's no salary cap in the playoff, boys. We all know this, right? So you never know, because Mark Stone does what he loves to do and just resurrects from the dead on the middle of April, and yeah, exactly. And the Dallas Stars could be in a position to do that as well, but that's kind of a different conversation, but it's an interesting one nonetheless.
I mean, I wouldn't necessarily be angry at them if they did that, because Vegas gets away with doing it every freaking year.
Tampa's done it before.
If they're allowed to do it, why can't they do it?
Tampa's done it before. Chicago's done it before.
Chicago's the one that started this whole fucking mess.
Back in 2013.
Yeah.
Like, listen, you get. Let's say there's a move that can be in place, but you're short on salary. I love that idea. Come March 1st, let's say you have a deal in the bag and you need salary. Miro, love you, buddy. You're going on LTR until the playoffs start, and then they go out and get a stud. And guess what? Miro comes back. He's healthy. Come game 1 of round 1 of the playoffs, this team might be unbeatable. Now, I'm not saying that they should go out and create the Avengers per se, because there are a lot of people that are very expensive out there. But go out and
fuck them picks, man. You can win the cup. Who cares?
Go out, trade all your draft. You don't need draft capital if you're the Stars. This is your window right now to go win a Stanley Cup. Go win your Stanley Cup. It's as simple as that.
You don't want to blow like your farm.
Okay, I'm not.
You have a lot of vets that are pretty close to retiring.
I don't want them to go out and trade all of their good prospects, because this team can develop players, and most of them aren't quite ready for the NHL. Even if there isn't quite room.
Yeah, that's a luxury you get when you have all these really good vets, is you can take your time with the prospects and you not have to force them up until they're ready.
Exactly. And I want to ask you, Mark,
Yeah.
Does it feel like this team is not done making moves, like any big giant moves, or are we kind of gonna have to wait to see how the next month or so plays out?
Yeah, I don't think they're done, but I do think that they could be done if they needed to be. Like if nothing comes along that really blows them out of the water, if nothing is like super attractive to them, I can't, or if the price is too high on certain players being traded away, I can see them being done. Like I do think that this roster as currently constructed, of course, Seagan coming back and Heiskanen coming back, those are massive, massive, especially Heiskanen. Like, don't get me wrong, Tyler Seguin's a wonderful player, and I think that they could really use him on the lineup. But how do I say this? Miro Heiskanen is like, I don't think people realize how good this guy is. Like, he is in Dallas playing on the West, not quite West Coast time, but playing Central time. And I don't think the rest of the league's fans understand that this is one of the best defensemen in the National Hockey League. It's not a one-for-one comparison, but it's a lot like Mike Trout being just rotting away in Los Angeles. You know what I mean? Like you have one of the best players in the game, and he's just out there in Dallas, kind of forgettable. He's a really important player to have back. But to your point, I do think that they could make moves. I still think right now with their defense, they have Dumba. I personally think that when Heiskanen comes back, I don't think Dumba will play in the playoffs very often. He's been okay, but he's been a liability back there, especially recently. They really like Liam Bichel, who's their young defenseman stud. He's been a prospect in the works for a while. You have Lindell, who's a really good player. Lyubushkin does what Lyubushkin does, man. He just goes to a random roster and just like holds it down. Like he's been to the Leafs like 9 times in the last 3 years, and he just, you know what I mean? Like Lyubushkin's really steady, really reliable. And then you have Thomas Harley. So the back end.
Thomas Harley is another
I
really
love
underrated
him.
player.
I fell in love with him in the playoffs.
Yeah, he's so good. And he's the reason why there's not full-blown panic about the Heiskanen injury. There is some panic, but Harley's the reason why it's okay right now, because that guy can move the puck so well, and I think it's completely fine. When it comes to the top of the roster, you have Robertson, Hintz, Stankoven, Marchment, Duchesne, Granlund, Ben, Johnston, Dodonoff. That's pretty solid. And Colin Blackwell and Steele have both played really well this year. So
Steele's a good fourth line center.
Steele was great.
Absolutely. So I think if they can add some depth up front, I think they will. But I don't think that it's a complete, like, you have to right now. The other thing I will say about trading your draft picks, Robertson is in the second last year of his deal. Same with Marchment. Hintz just started. He's in the second year of an 8-year deal. Duchesne's going year to year. That's fine. Johnston's going to start his new contract next year. Logan Stankoven has this year and the next before he starts working on a new deal. They have their key players. Same with Harley. Harley is in the first of a 2-year deal. You have Lyubushkin for 2 more seasons after this. You have Heiskanen for another 4 seasons. Like, your really core players are all locked up right now. So to me, I'm not saying you gotta sell everybody, but there's lots of room to make moves here.
Oh, I have no problem with them trading picks. I just wouldn't sell the whole prospect farm right now, especially when we got some vets to replace. But no, I'm all for like trading the picks. Yeah, especially like your window's open now. If you feel like you're a move or 2 away from winning a Stanley Cup, do it.
I want to go back to Thomas Harley real quick. I'm a big analytics guy, and I use Evolving Hockey. I'm looking at his Evolving Hockey chart right now. I want you guys to guess right now what percentile he is in for offense and overall. And I guess we can do defense too.
I mean, I'm guessing he's in the 90s.
He's in the 90s for overall and offense, and then defense, he's not quite there, but he's close.
Yeah, that's way more your guys. I'm
Well,
not into the whole 30
to
stats thing
okay
yet, but
to explain it or whatever, he's in the 99th percentile in overall as a player in the league, 99th percentile in offense, and that just goes to show you he's one of the best offensive guys in the entire league, not just D-man.
he's so good.
He's so good. In that 2-year deal, I know they just wanted to sign him to a bridge deal because if let's say they signed him to an 8-year by $7.5 million deal, for example, or $8 million, whatever, and that doesn't pan out, now they're stuck with that money. But now I get the risk and reward with signing him to a bridge.
His big boy contract. I think
They'll
try to get it done this summer if they can.
He deserves an extension, truly.
I mean, the good thing is the salary cap's going up by a ton of money in the next 3 years.
It's going
so
up
they're gonna
by
have money to spend.
$9 million going in the next season,
Especially because they have a
$9
little bit of leverage because he has another year left on his contract. So the cap's going up by like $9 million next year, and it's going to go up by like another $8 or $9 million the next year after that, and they can sign him to like an $8 million or $9 million AAV contract and be completely fine.
Of course.
Yeah, and I mean, like according to Puckpedia, they have 27 million in cap space for next season as of right now.
Is that accounting for the cap going up?
Yes, it is. And then the year after that, and I know this is kind of crazy, we're talking about 2 years now, but the year after that, when it goes up to 104 million, they have almost $60 million free in cap space, which just shows you how much wiggle room they have right now. You know what I mean? I think they're in a really good position. The cool thing about Thomas Harely too, Zach, you're talking about the guy, is there have been media like in Dallas who have been like begging to see Harely on the top power play unit because Heiskanen, he's just there always, no matter what. And the power play wasn't working. And they were saying like, this isn't about Heiskanen, just put Harely on the top unit and see what happens. And now they have no choice. And so it's going to be really interesting to see kind of that moving forward as well.
Yeah, I'm excited to see him up there. He has a bigger role. He's an opportunity right now. He's playing as a number one defenseman on the team, and hopefully he takes it and just runs with it and just performs. All right. I know we talked a little bit about the playoff matchups a little while ago, but I want to get your take on going into the playoffs now. Let's ignore just bracket or whatever, like possible playoff matchups. What is one team, or it could be multiple teams, that is a nightmare matchup come the Dallas Stars come playoffs?
Nightmare matchup. I do think I don't know if there really is a nightmare matchup, if I'm being completely honest with you. Like, I do think the hardest matchup is Vegas. I do. I think that because like the Oilers are still a very good team, and they could absolutely go back to the Stanley Cup final, of course. But their depth is still a problem. And Stuart Skinner, he had an awful beginning to the playoffs last year, and he was incredible down the stretch. This is my opinion. This is not a fact. Based on my analysis, I still just don't really trust him. And I know that other people around the NHL, there are definitely Oilers writers that are going to say he's completely fine. There's no big deal. I still have a hard time trusting him. I think that the Oilers are a beatable team when it comes to the Dallas Stars. Colorado, maybe I'm being completely stupid here. I'm not scared of them right now. They have one line that scores 1 million goals. And other than that, I'm not really scared. The Kings, really good team. I just don't think the Kings can keep up scoring goals.
Exit, I think, yeah.
Yeah. So
they may not make the playoffs. They're in a battle with Calgary and Vancouver right now for that 3 spot in the Pacific. They might not even be a playoff team.
What if, just hypothetically, Calgary says,
like last year, right?
What's up?
What's that, Zach? Sorry?
I was going to say, hypothetically, what if Calgary says screw LA and just kicks LA right out of the playoffs? Vancouver steals that 2nd spot in the wild card. Calgary gets the 3rd spot in the Pacific.
I mean, I think if the Stars have to play Calgary, I think they're like laughing. I think they're very happy about
Dallas
that.
is loving that.
Yeah, so for my gambling show, my favorite futures bet in the summer was Calgary to make the playoffs, because everybody dude, everybody, and maybe you guys too. No disrespect.
The guy,
Everybody-
another guy in this call was the biggest
reason-
Flames hater I've
the-
ever seen in my life over the summer.
Everybody was treating the Flames like they're like a lottery team, and I'm like, they're not going to win the division, but they still got Kadri. Huberdeau cannot be as bad as he's been the last couple of years. He has to get better. They still have Coleman. They still have like Uyghur, Rasmus, right? Like, how can this team just be a bottom feeder? They're gonna have to. And sure enough, will they actually stick around? I think they might make it to the playoffs just because Vancouver is just a constant disaster. So they might just make it in by default. Although I did see that they just signed Marcus Peterson,
Yeah, long-term deal.
which is just that's a whole other conversation.
yeah.
But anyway, so to answer your question, man, I don't really think there is a bad matchup. I think Vegas is, in my opinion, as deep as the Stars are. I like the Stars goaltending better than Vegas's goaltending. I do think the Jets, based on what I'm watching right now, I think the Jets are not to be messed with. However, like we talked about before, they still have to prove it come playoff time. Like, it's insane. Connor Hellebuck's numbers, playoffs versus regular season. It's out. I don't have it right in front of me, but like, it is crazy how this guy is one of the best goaltenders to ever put the pads on. And when the playoffs come, it's just a whole different guy. So that's what we're going to have to be proved about by the time playoffs come.
I'm with
Yeah,
you.
no, the playoffs start and Winnipeg like completely takes care of business in the first round and Connor Hellebuck looks like a stud. I think then Dallas should be nervous about that. Because
For sure.
If you get like regular season Connor Hellebuck in the playoffs, that's a really, really hard team to beat.
Oh yeah, and you're gonna need to ask Jake Ottinger to go toe to toe with the best goaltender.
I mean,
in
I
the
think
league.
he can. I think
I'm
Dallas
not
is
saying
good enough
that he's not-
defensively and good
yeah.
enough depth wise. I think that would be a really, really fun series to. I don't know if it'd be fun. It would be a
No,
lot
it
of
would be.
defensive hockey.
But it would be. It's like
But-
it's not that boring defensive hockey where you're just getting dump and chase and retrievals in the corner and back and forth.
I don't know. That
I-
Toronto Boston series was pretty fucking
Okay,
boring
but
last year, and that was all defense.
Boston is a fucking horrible team to watch in general. So like at least Dallas and Winnipeg are somewhat fun teams to watch right now. Boston all year round sucks to watch.
I hope they don't make the playoffs. I really hope
I'm
they
with
don't make
you.
it.
I'm with
I don't
you.
want to watch them in the playoffs. I'm sick of them.
Dude, the Eastern, I mean, this isn't what this podcast is about, so I don't want to hijack things, but the Eastern Conference playoff race is just an absolute gong show. And what I love about it is last year it was like torture because the playoff race was as crazy last year, especially in like late March, early April, but everyone was losing.
Yeah.
Like no one actually wanted to make it into the playoffs.
Yeah, I remember those. Those are our headlines in some of our podcasts last year. It was like nobody wants to make the playoffs because it
was
like move up
crazy.
to this wild card spot, and then they go on a losing streak. They kept taking turns.
I know. Where this year, it's fascinating. But anyway, that's a different conversation. But the playoff race, where in the West, it's
night and day
It's
difference.
boring.
It's a snooze
It's just
fest,
boring.
yeah.
well
You know
done. Yeah.
Fucking can Vancouver start losing games so we just have like Calgary make it in comfortably and it's like screw it. We have 8 teams come to trade deadline that are just gonna make it in the
Yeah,
West.
there's
at
only
this
2
point.
really spots in the West that are probably up for grabs. The rest are probably pretty safe playoff teams.
Yes, and Utah and St. Louis was in it for a bit, and then they decided to lose. And Calgary's like, yeah, we're not giving up. And the reason I was laughing when you brought up Calgary is because over the summer, I was convinced that Calgary is going to be the worst team in the league.
How many wins do you think they were going to have? It was some ridiculous.
I had
number.
like I think 20 wins or 22 wins or something.
Holy moly, man.
And they're already at 26 right now, so it's.
I tried talking sense to him and was like, look, I don't think they're going to be amazing, but they're not going to be that bad. Like the only team I think over the summer that was going to be that bad was Chicago or San Jose.
Well, listen, Zach, I'll make you feel better. So my favorite futures bet was for Calgary to make the playoffs. I really liked it, as we've talked about. However, this same guy who feels like a genius for picking the Flames also picked the Hurricanes to miss the playoffs. So you're fine.
What?
Oh my
That's
God.
wild.
That's
Yeah.
crazy.
It happens, man. You're right. You make these predictions, and
I mean, I don't think
sometimes
that's super crazy. I mean, did you think Washington was going to be this much better this year? Because I know the Rangers, people were probably really high on the Rangers, and the Devils were going to be better. Like,
I thought Washington. I didn't think Washington was going to win the President's Trophy, what they're on pace to do right now.
yeah,
But I thought Washington was going to be good because last year they made it to the playoffs and they were not a playoff team. And on paper, they made the roster better. And I thought, like, getting Logan Thompson, I thought was like a sneaky, because he's been one of the best backup goaltenders going for a while. So that was like a sneaky good signing, or trade.
Yeah,
Trade or signing.
that was a trade. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know why Vegas did that trade.
Yeah, man. So I thought that was a really good pickup by then. I didn't think they were going to win the President's Trophy, but their roster on paper I thought got better. So why are they going to fall off the map? I just thought Carolina, like losing Brady Shea, I thought was huge. I thought, not re-signing Gensel was huge. There's another player that left that Pesci, losing him, I thought was really important. The goaltending, with Kochekov and with Anderson, Kochekov, I think, is still not quite proven to be a number one goaltender. And Anderson, the guy is just hurt all the time.
Mm-hmm.
He's a very good goaltender, still very good, but just hurt all the time. So I just thought that if there was going to be any team that would fade away, I thought it would be Carolina. And it turns out that did not happen, boys. Turns out
it was the Rangers that faded.
Or the Bruins, yeah.
Unbelievable.
That's wild. I was not expecting to hear Carolina come out of your mouth when you said that.
Yeah. Well, I gotta make Zach feel better because I am talking about how smart I am about the Flames, but I'm not always smart, man. I say things
20
too.
wins though, that's pretty spicy.
I will give myself props though for having Minnesota as a playoff team. Me and Preston had them, and when we ended up making a episode over the summer about the Minnesota Wild are building a powerhouse. It did really well, but for the wrong reasons. People kept saying that Bill Guerin was an idiot, and we're like, listen, they have $14 million coming off the books next summer. Kirill Kaprizov's going to get paid, plus they have extra money with the salary cap going up. And I'll never forget this comment. Preston knows what I'm going to say. My favorite comment that I've ever had was, all Bill Guerin does is lay on the couch and eat pizza all day. That... I will give both of us props for the Wild making the playoffs.
I mean, first of all, that sounds like a great life. Like,
millions of dollars
be a millionaire eating pizza all day. Yeah,
I would
do that already, but I'm not a millionaire, so it's a bit different.
Yeah. That's going to end it for today's episode. Guys, enjoy it. Go follow Mark on Twitter. Do you want me to link your hockey writers as well?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I am, constantly writing all throughout the week about the Dallas Stars. And like I said, once again, it's not even shameless at this point. It's full of shame. It's a shamed plug, but that's fine. Pucks Across Borders. My buddy Andre and I, we talk about the night that was before. And then we highlight our favorite betting picks for the night that is before us. So check us out on YouTube as well.
And thank you again for joining the episode. It was a lot of fun talking to you. It really was.
Yeah.
Man, thank you guys for having me. I'm always down to talk puck. And I got a 2-year-old who is awesome, but is also insane. So you give me an hour off and I get to talk hockey. But my wife is going to throw him at me when we get done here. But thank you guys so much. Thank you.
Of course.
Yeah, thanks for coming on, man.